Yeah, so now this is a session 5. It's our second last session. So we're going to do CA basically. Yeah, so we've done 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I imagine we've learned a lot out of the first 5 sessions. So today we're doing what we call CA. Let me just increase the font to maybe 36. Okay. So we're doing CA. So under CA, we shall cover what we call IQM, RS flip, and is R flip. I imagine you know most of these concepts are because I think you watched my earlier videos. But let me just cover it for the rest. So now, as I said, CA is what we call counter attack, right? Counter attack. So now we use counter attack in cases where one, we have a hit stop loss, a hit stop loss. Then a second scenario where we have a breaker. So of course, if you have a breaker, meaning your stop loss is hit, right? Then if you have what we call a broken zone, So now on the broken zone, we have what we call, each time a zone is broken, at the back of your mind, you should know that orders are removed, right? So the smart money or the institutional traders remove their orders from a zone. So now most times, if a zone is broken, it simply means the smart money have removed their orders. Let me illustrate. If we had a zone here, the zone there. Now along this zone here, we have what we call unfilled orders, right? Unfilled orders. Simple. So we have what we call unfilled orders here. So if the smart money basically remove these orders here, right? If the smart money remove these orders here, this zone will get broken. If the smart money remove their orders, the zone usually gets broken. So each time a zone is broken, the smart money have removed their orders, right? They usually remove their orders. Then that's when they can break a zone. So as I said, I will use the counter attack when one, I said when we have a breaker, this is a clear breaker. So usually when there's a breaker, the zone is broken, meaning orders have been removed. And then of course, if you have a perfect setup, your stop loss will get hit. So now when these 3 occurrences occur, at the back of your mind, you should consider what we call the counter attack. It's a very beautiful concept. It helps you, what should I say? It helps you change gears, because sometimes you can have a perfect setup, everything in place, but for whatever reason, the setup fails. So if the setup fails, then you can consider what we call the counter attack. Okay, now let me just illustrate it. So now take for instance, you have a perfect setup. Let's let me just get back. Let's say you have a perfect setup. So now I'm going to start with the first item. So now the first item under the counter attack is what we call the IQM, right? The IQM. So now the IQM is what we call the ignored QML, right? So you can have a perfect QML setup, but for whatever reason the setup fails. That is what we call the IQM. And now when this occurs, then you can consider the counter attack, right? Let me illustrate that. So now take for instance, so here we have a perfect QML high, something of this sort. Then of course, this is the zone or the area that we are looking to sell at, right? Then we even have some bit of price approach. Then for whatever reason, this zone here doesn't respect, right? So if this zone doesn't respect and price just breaks it. So now here we shall have what we call our removed orders, meaning that the smart money have removed their orders from that area there, right? And then price goes ahead to break this area here, right? So now here we have what we call a breaker. So we have a breaker right above there. So now, as a result, 1, your stop loss has been hit. 2, the zone has been broken. And 3, the smart money have removed their orders. So now this is a perfect scenario for a counter attack. So now the counter attack helps in confirmation of change of trend. Most times, if the trend is changing, most of the time you'll have scenarios of what we call the counter attack. And as you can see here, we have an IQM. And as I see that an IQM is an ignored QML, right? So you can see here we had a QML that got violated. So now here what you do, you wait for the counter attack. So what you do, you look out for decision points along these areas here. You look out for decision points along the area that got broken. Then you wait for a retracement. And then you can then have the counter attack. You can then buy, right? So that is what we call the concept of counter attack. You can then buy. Of course, you wait for confirmation. You look out for things like compression, 3 drive. Those things help quite a lot for confirmation. So this is what we call the concept of the counter attack. Yeah, it's a very simple concept. Don't really complicate it. Yeah, I think last week we had a rough trading week. It was not a good trading week. I think majorly due to too many fundamentals. We had so many fundamentals last week. That is why the markets were very volatile and acting funny. That is why we didn't make so much money last week. But otherwise, trading is all about risk management. You'll have good weeks, you'll have bad weeks, and sometimes you can even have bad months. So these are things that you have to be psychologically prepared for. We do not own the markets. And as someone said, the market isn't your mother. Okay, let me see. If you're following, you can comment. You can comment if you're following me. My voice is a bit low today. You can comment if you're following me. Are you still there? Yeah, perfect. Thanks for confirming. Now let me jump on to the final bit, and that is what we call before even you go ahead, let me just get quick examples of the concept of IQM. It's a very beautiful concept. Let me see. Let me jump on to NZDJPY. NZDJPY, let me go to H4. Yeah, so I think you can notice something. I don't know if you've noticed it. Okay, perfect. Now notice here, we had what we call a QML. So you can see price from the high. Then I went ahead to form a low. Then it formed the higher high. And then it formed what we call the lower low. So now, ideally, this is what we call a perfect QML, right? You can see it for yourself. But now notice what happens. Price have violated the QML. So you can notice we have what we call the breaker. We have a breaker there. Price has broken structure there. So this is a typical IQM right there. IQM. So we have an ignored QML there. So now basically what we're going to do, we're just going to wait for what? For the counterattack, basically. So we're just going to look out at this. We're going to look out for these areas here. This area, I don't know if it has filled it already. Let me see that area there. And maybe possibly this final zone there. Those are two areas we're going to look out for, right? And as you can see, we even have a possible RE. We have field orders there. We have possible field orders there. So we're just going to see our price will react to this area here. These areas here. So you can see now this is a typical example of a counter attack based on the concept of the ignored Quasimodo. So this is a potential, a potential setup. I think then let me see, Euro New Zealand, I think this setup here really missed. This setup here played us last week. Let me see. Okay, I think you can now see it. So now notice, let me just mark that area. I don't know if it was broken. Yeah, but you can see there's a slight breaker there. So definitely that means stop loss levels were hit definitely along that area there. So you can notice here we had a small QML high, and then we had what we call the low. Then now we had what we call the higher high, right? Somewhere there, we have some sort of QML there, mini QML, right? So now here, there's a slight breaker there. It's micro. So now that basically confirms to me a counterattack. I don't think this thing will keep on dropping down. So we just have to look out for these areas here. This area, and then that area there. Those areas there. Because now here we're going to have a potential, we shall possibly have a potential counter attack along those areas there. So we shall observe those areas critically, because now here we have a slight breaker. So here basically we have what we call an IQM. IQM, very simple. IQM right there. Yeah, so this week, usually if I have a bad trading week, The following week, I usually trade less. If you have a bad trading week, the following week, usually trade a few trades just for some bit of recovery. That is what I usually do most of the time. Yeah, because I think January was a good trading month. Then the first week of February, too many fundamentals. It was patchy. Let me see one more example. Let me see a US dollar MXN. I think, yeah, I think this is a perfect example. Okay, so notice price formed what we call a high, then it formed what we call a low. Then as you can see here, we have what we call a higher high, then price then formed a lower low. So now definitely along this area here, we have what we call a QML. But now notice our price just violated that area there. So now meaning here we had what we call the IQM right there. IQM. So this was a typical counter attack. So you can see how we waited for price to retrace. So after the retracement, we then bought. Of course, now the retracement had a compression. You can see the compression for yourself. And then we bought. This was a nice counter attack. And then we had more confirmation. We had what we call, we had field orders. So whenever you see field orders, it confirms to what we call the re-entry. So here we also had what we call a re-entry. So a re-entry sometimes is a confirmation for a counter attack. If you have what we call the breaker and maybe an IQM. Yeah, so I think that wraps it up for the IQM. Yeah, so let me conclude with what we call the RS flip and SR flip. Yeah, so now this is another type of counter attack, but the only difference about this is that price doesn't retrace so much. Price doesn't retrace deeply, right? So here, price basically just swaps along that area there. So let me see. RSF is what we call the resistance, support flip. Very simple concept. So here, basically, resistance becomes what we call support. And this one usually identify it on uptrends. So if you had a resistance level, right? A resistance level. So now when price breaks your level there, that level there, right? When price breaks it, and then it retraces back, then it then continues up. So now this area is what we call the resistance, support, flip. So basically price flipped from a resistance to support, on and on, same concept. You look out for uptrends. And now these are flippy areas, or these swappy areas, are much more powerful if it coincides with the decision point. So if you can find a decision point along those areas there, it becomes very beautiful and much more powerful. So that is what we call the resistance, support, flip. Resistance to support flip. Very, very, very simple. Then it's the opposite for the other. So the other is what we call the SR flip. It's what we call support, a resistance flip. Yeah, so basically a support becomes a resistance. It's just the opposite. Opposite. Yeah, so now here, if your support level gets broken, and then price will basically just retrace to that broken level and then continue. So that's what we call the support resistance flip. Support resistance flip. And now for this one, you look out for it on downtrends. On a downtrend. Very simple concept. Yeah, so I think that is it basically. For the SR flip, and let me just peruse through and see. So now this is Australian US dollar. So you can notice here we had a typical support resistance flip right there. Let me see if I can get more. Here we had a support resistance flip. The examples are quite, so now this is an uptrend, a resistance support flip. It can go on and on and on and on. Let me see. Yeah, it doesn't happen all the time, but you can be able to pick it out on trending markets, right? Take for instance here, we had a perfect one. So here we had a support level, then became resistance. Let me see. Let me go to lower time frame. But I usually okay, now let me just hint out something. It must have a decision point. So if you're looking out for resistance, support flip, and support resistance areas, always make sure it has a decision point. If it doesn't have a decision point, don't consider it. That is my hint. Look out for decision points along those areas there. So you can take, for instance, this. We had a support resistance. Now notice now there we had a decision point. We had a decision point there, right there. I think also here, we had some sort of flippy there, support resistance flip. Yeah, I think let me stop at that. Let me stop at that and yeah, call it a session. Yeah, so Saga, thanks for sticking around. I think I'm going to call it a session. This marks the end of session 5. So session 5, I've basically done what we call the CA, the counter attack. So we've covered IQM, which is the ignore at QML. Then we've looked at the swap areas, resistance, a support flip, and support resistance flip. Yeah, perfect. You know, trading sounds easy in theory, but when you go to the markets, that is when you have to put in the work. And as I say, practice makes perfect. You have to practice these things, and over time you gain experience and you're able to become profitable out of these concepts here. So I request that you put in the work. Yeah, let me call it a session. Have a good morning, and I'll send I think the assignment, and then I will keep in touch. Bye-bye.